Alex quite rightly said, this is an election year. Now let's be clear. The country never voted that it was ready for Rishi. But I am absolutely certain that the country is ready for Rishi to call an election sooner rather than later. Because I'm also certain, and in fact I'm cheerful, I'm optimistic, that the country quite rightly wants to punish the Tories for breaking Britain, because that is what they want to do. I think the country wants to punish them, to oust them, and replace them. The question is what we replace them with. Now, 3 years ago, when I launched Reform UK, the Tories laughed at me. They said, "Why are you bothering? We're getting it sorted." And to coin an expression from my good friend Nigel in the European Parliament, they're not laughing now. No, the truth is, the Tories are terrified. Yes, in the new year, the special pleading has already started. Oh, please don't stand here. Please don't stand there. I'm one of the nice guys. I believe in everything that you believe in. You've all broken Britain. You're all responsible. So there's no special deals. We stand in every single seat in England, Scotland, and Wales. Now, of course, the Prime Minister, he likes his maths. He's a technocrat. He likes to mark things. So I thought we ought, first of all, to start by marking his exam report for last year, because he stood up almost exactly a year ago and gave us his 5 pledges, didn't he? You remember those 5? Well, let's just see how he's got on. Stopping the boats. 30,000 illegal migrants later, I think we can mark that down as a fail. Growing the economy. Well, the latest economic data shows that actually the economy is not growing. It's going into reverse. It's getting smaller. So we're going to mark that down as a fail as well. Reducing debt, well, he's failed at that as well. So he wants us all to be good at maths. Well, let's just look at the maths. So far, 3 fails out of 3. He wants to cut the waiting lists. Well, it's not gone so well either, has it, Prime Minister? The waiting lists have gone up. So we're going to mark that as a fail as well. But credit where credit's due. He said he would halve inflation, and inflation has halved. So we'll put that down as a pass. So that's 1 pass out of 5, which we all know is 20%. So in any exam that I suspect any of us have taken part in, 20% is a fail. No ifs, no buts. You might want to resit, but in many schools and colleges, if you're that bad, you wouldn't even be allowed to resit the exam. And that's the point. I think the country, the voters will say, Prime Minister, you're not allowed to continue to run the country. You have failed. And the reason that they've failed, we've got a slide here, is because of what they've done to the country. The truth is, the Tories have become like the Labour Party, 2 sides of the same socialist coin. We've got record high taxes, we've got record high wasteful government spending, and yet disastrous outcomes, whether it's in health, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in housing, trying to see a GP, everything is getting worse. We've got record nanny state regulations. They've utterly failed to take advantage of the great Brexit opportunity that offers so much promise, and still does, with the right leadership. And of course, the biggest betrayal of all by this government is on immigration. They absolutely promised, election after election, particularly when we were going to get Brexit done, that they would bring down lawful immigration. And yet they've deliberately done exactly the opposite. They've betrayed the people. In particular, they've betrayed Brexit voters and the working class voters. They've opened the borders to mass, uncontrolled immigration of a scale that this country has never seen before. And both economically and culturally, that is not good for the United Kingdom. The other similarity between the two main parties, of course, is they're obsessed with the multi-trillion-pound cost of net zero. The problem is, and Rishi has failed in one of his pledges, you cannot grow an economy with the burden of these 5 key factors. And that's why the economy is doing the opposite of what everybody thought. The economy is not growing. It's flatlining. There's no growth. And if there's no growth, you eventually run out of money if you keep increasing spending. So what's the alternative? Well, the country needs a serious wake-up call, because the alternative actually is Starmageddon. Starmageddon is a risk near you in 2024. We are facing a catastrophic cocktail of economic incompetence and cultural pillage that would be a disaster for the United Kingdom. Because, of course, in every Labour government, every socialist way, they want more taxes. They want to take more of your money. Unbelievably, they want to get closer to the failing, sclerotic, recessionary European Union. We've just left it, and thank God we have. Germany's in recession. The EU's going nowhere. And yet Starmageddon wants to take us closer to it. They want more government spending, of course. That's what socialists do. They want more nanny state regulations because they think they know how to control your life better than you do. And of course, they want to betray the working class. I mean, the Labour Party was founded supposedly to protect and promote the working class. But with more mass immigration, you get exactly the opposite. An absolute disaster that has the effect of depressing British wages. And I'll give you an example of that. In the fast food delivery business, all the big fast food companies, they are complicit in allowing massive illegal working, huge illegal working, which is depressing wages of decent British working class people. And that is wrong, but that is the betrayal of the Labour Party. And of course, they're even more obsessed with net zero than the Tories. You cannot grow an economy under this burden. It's never been done before. Now, Jeremy Hunt, the other month, he was sort of celebrating when you had growth of 0.1 or 0.2%. For heaven's sake, man, that's feeble, that's pathetic. I remind people, in the 80s and 90s, the country was growing at 2.5 to 3% plus every single year. We're lucky if we grow at all. And here's the point that nobody's talking about enough. The deficit this year, already at almost 120 billion, is likely to end up by April at 150 billion pounds a year. If you have no growth and you keep spending more than you earn, then next year it'll be between 150 and 200 billion pounds. And eventually the bond markets say, we're done. Enough is enough. No more. You've run out of cash. You've run out of money. You're bankrupt. That is where Starmageddon is taking us, with these key elements. And it is a catastrophe, an absolute cocktail of catastrophic incompetence. So we're crystal clear. Only Reform UK, with our policies, can now save Britain. The key thing is, we've got a cost of living crisis. The fastest and best way, the most helpful way to deal with that is, as I've said before, exactly a year ago, I said, you've got to make work pay. You've got to lift the starting point at which anybody pays any income tax from 12.5 grand to £20,000. That frees up 6 million people from any income tax at all. Net, it's about 30 quid a week. That is a significant difference to millions of households. Of course, there's lots of other taxes we need to cut as well in business, and also things like fuel duty. We should be cutting 20p of every litre of fuel. That will make a huge difference to individuals and to small businesses. And it's brilliant that our fantastic London mayoral candidate, Howard Cox, who's here today, he, of course, has been the champion of freezing fuel duty for many years. We've got to cut the wasteful government spending. It's off the scale. All of us in our households, small businesses, we're looking at our budgets and we're saying, we've got to save £5 in 100 without affecting our products, our frontline services, while still paying the bills. If you do that in government, every single manager of every quango, commission, department, council, it soon adds up. Yes, it's well north of £50 billion a year. That's what's got to be done. And of course, you've got to take advantage of the great, brilliant opportunities from Brexit. You've got to cut thousands and thousands of daft EU regulations. The Tories, once again, they promised it. They even got a little bill together to get rid of 4,000 regs. And then the Prime Minister cowardly, feebly bottled it as he cozied up to Ursula von der Leyen. Hopeless. If you're going to do something like Brexit, for God's sake, do it properly. On immigration, we've got to freeze non-essential immigration. One in, one out. That is what the British people vote, I believe. That's what the people want. The British people never voted for mass immigration. And finally, we've got to scrap the totally job-destroying trillion-pound cost of net zero. Just that alone will make people better off. That alone will ease the cost of living crisis. I talk about the betrayal of Labour against the working class. Net zero, every week, every month, is destroying thousands of skilled manufacturing jobs, steel jobs, automotive jobs. They've betrayed their own people. Only Reform UK Now is the party of the working class, who will stop mass immigration, who will scrap net zero, who will help solve the cost of living crisis. And if we do these things together as a nation, as Alex quite rightly said earlier, you want change, you've got to vote for it. And if the country votes for this change, then the result will be a high-growth, dynamic economy where all of us feel a great deal better off. Now, we're making great progress. We're going to be ready whenever the election is called. We've got our sort of spring rally. We're bringing it forward a bit, spring, on the 24th of February in Doncaster so that we're ready, announcing all our hundreds and hundreds of candidates. We're almost there. We're approaching 500 approved and allocated, hundreds more applying as every day goes by.